June Lockhart was let go from Miss USA in 1972 due to a single issue. She would not keep her private life hidden. Her departure was mandated by the Morals Clause. However, that was merely the first step. At the age of 44, she turned down the part of Carol Brady and stood by while another actress became a star. She continued to practice yoga and request wine at fan events even at the age of 99. Now that she's 100, her co-stars are chatting openly. The beginning of the rebellion, the rock concerts, and the moment she threatened legal action. Unlike the June Lockhart of Sunday night television, this one is completely different. The stage was June Lockhart's birthplace. There was more to her birth than meets the eye on June 25, 1925. More accurately, it felt like the next scene in an epic family drama. From Canada to Broadway to Hollywood, her father, Gene Lockhart, had already made his mark, appearing in more than 300 films and even being nominated for an Oscar in 1939. Coming all the way from South Sea, England, her mother, Kathleen, brought the elegance of British theatre across the Atlantic. June, the month of their wedding, inspired her name. She was brought up in an environment where she was continuously exposed to professionals, scripts, costumes, and character rehearsals, in addition to her parents. Her childhood was everything from peaceful. June sat in the wings of live stage performances or tiptoed around film sets, while most youngsters played with dolls or blocks. As her dad prepared lines in his deep voice, the home resounded with the sound of theater, and her mom's gentler voice muted the harsher edges. They lived their lives as performers, not merely on stage. In every interaction they had, whether in the hallway or over dinner, the Lockhart's seriousness for acting shone through. Raising a daughter wasn't all they were doing. The performers of Lockhart's future were being shaped by them. Even before June could repeat complete sentences, she was acting out monologues. The lines from her father's MGM audition tapes were as easy for her to memorize as a set of nursery rhymes. She began practicing diction at the tender age of 5, the same manner that most children learn the alphabet. Becoming a child star wasn't as important as joining the family business. Furthermore, June was not absent from the house throughout her parents' rehearsals. The cadence of character development and the tempo of performance were being absorbed by her as she listened intently. Instead of performing in a school recital, she made her Metropolitan Opera debut in a big production of Peter Ibbotson when she was just 8 years old. Just her presence, no dialogue, no lines. Still, that was plenty to leave a lasting impression on many. June did more than just survive. She became a star among the seasoned performers and Grammy-winning musicians who surrounded her. She was already making a living playing pretend, long before most kids even thought about it as a career. Afterwards, the event that cemented the three Lockhart's place in cinematic history occurred. Being 13 years old in 1938, June had an appearance in A Christmas Carol playing the role of Belinda Cratchit. Her mom was called Mrs. Cratchit, and her dad was called Bob. The kindness they seemed to radiate wasn't an act. Those involved were relatives. The relationships were genuine, which meant that the chemistry was too. No amount of illumination from MGM's studio could have matched the brilliance of that inherent bond. In 1940, 2 years down the road, June entered a more difficult arena. Both All This and Heaven 2 starred her opposite B.U. Davis. This movie wasn't suitable for kids. She had to keep her composure because it was a monumental, solemn, emotionally packed event. As June observed Davis, clad in ornate costumes and quoting historical speech, bring situations to life with genuine emotion, she gained insight into the importance of immersing oneself in a role from a true master. She wasn't even fazed. Only she would go on to perform as an adult, out of the 4 kids in that picture. Her career continued to gain steam. Her breakout performance as Gary Cooper's sister in Sergeant York came in 1941. For the year, it was the highest grossing picture. June, who was just 16 years old, had to personify virtues like innocence, faith, and rustic sincerity. Cooper was so touched by her performance that he presented her with a Bible bearing a heartfelt message. There was an unusual catch, though, to the success. Only actresses with impeccable moral character may be cast in the film, according to the genuine Alvin York. Her career was marked by both opportunities and setbacks, but her unadulterated self-confidence never left her. There was a darker side to Hollywood behind the scenes. Shadows were also visible to June. Meeting Me in St. Louis was being shot at the time. As she sabotaged scenes and whispered insults to 7-year-old Margaret O'Brien between takes, she overheard Judy Garland harassing the child. June took charge. Despite Garland's threats of reprisal, she stood firm in her defense of the child actress in front of the whole team. Despite its insignificance, little the grand scheme of things, it showcased June's honesty despite the influence of the studio. Son of Lassie, which took place in 1945, put her strength to the test once again. However, the Scottish Highlands were as cruel as they were beautiful. June filmed in skimpy clothes while braving the snow and icy showers as the temperature plummeted to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Despite her fever of 103 degrees, she continued filming after being ill with pneumonia. She passed out in between takes, but she never missed a shot since she was so afraid that her career would suffer if she took a break. In a field that frequently viewed young women as expendable, she was prepared to go to such lengths to maintain her relevance. Next up was London's She Wolf. A minor horror endeavor turned into a full-blown calamity. 4 hours of makeup, harmful fumes, and no breaks were all part of director Jean Yarrow's realistic demands. She broke out in blisters. She was unable to get out of her chair. The transformation scenes were removed, making it seem like all the anguish from 18 days of non-stop filming had been in vain. In retrospect, June did acknowledge that she underperformed in that movie. After all, who wouldn't? The unsung struggles, though, were the ones that were most difficult. Studios were trying to shape her into something she wasn't, hidden behind the modest dresses and smiles. Pin-up photo shoots offered her $50,000 each film in 1947, but only if she posed for cheesecake shots as part of a massive contract. The XX became furious when she declined. One went so far as to tell June's family, moral purity doesn't sell tickets. However, June remained unwavering. She had grown up in an artistic family, not a marketing one. Being just another face on a calendar wasn't something she was interested in. She struggled with the support of her parents and prioritized honor over wealth long before it was fashionable. When June Lockhart took the stage at Henry Miller's Theater in New York City in the fall of 1947, the leaves were starting to change. Thursday, November 4th. This young woman was just 22 years old. However, something changed that night. Her transformation into Janet Blake in For Love or Money captivated audiences who had previously dismissed her as either a typical child star or the heiress to Hollywood fortunes. On June 19, 1948, the play's run came to an end after 228 performances. Nobody expected that. She reportedly made an unexpected statement upon her arrival on Broadway. According to one headline, the change was tangible. At last, she was noticed. They liked what they saw, not her parents' legacy or her previous performances. The next day was March 28, 1948. Everyone was talking at the Waldorf Astoria. The Tony Award for Best Performance by a newcomer went to Lockhart that night. There was only ever one instance of this extremely unusual category. A medallion bracelet inscribed with the words, "The American Theater Wing presents your Tony." The Antoinette Harry Award was given in 1947 and 2048, but there is no golden statue. It was subsequently that she donated it to the Smithsonian. The United States of America now has that honor. As Burt Little and Harry Hirschfield yelled her name that night, the entire globe listened on War Radio. There was more to her victory that night. She left an indelible impression on Broadway. June of Lorraine, which starred Ingrid Bergman, was released the very year. At the height of her fame, Bergman earned $129 in addition to 15% of the box office receipts. Many people flocked to the Alvin Theater. For 12 consecutive weeks, lines formed outside the building, encircling it. Even Lockhart was there, as Bergman became the season's queen of Broadway. Rumors regarding Bergman's involvement with Rossellini started circulating around that period. A scandal that jeopardized the Joan of Arc picture in the end, while the critically acclaimed and packed play went unaffected. Lockhart, however, had no intention of coasting. She jumped straight onto more dramatic parts after her Tony victory, performing 8 times weekly without an understudy. That was the golden age of Broadway in the 1940s. People were gobbled up by it, but she remained. Many critics lauded her comedic and dramatic performances. She was not messing around. It was her job. Even seasoned actors were beaten down by live audiences and hectic schedules during her day. But she never missed a performance, always giving it her all. Her future was founded on such work. It was more than just drills. That was just setting the stage for what was to follow. Sardis was the social hub of Broadway. Lockhart was well versed in it. After each show, the producers and actors would mingle. Speculation circulated throughout the tables as celebrity caricatures adorned the walls. In Sardis, there was more than just dining. It was an important life event. If you were welcomed there, that meant you had made it. Lockhart was no longer merely a tourist to Broadway, she was an integral part of the scene. She had a place there. She was nominated for Best Actress for the first time in 1953. It was her lost. Even though Lucille Ball lost, it would turn out to be a bizarre win in and of itself. At the time, Lockhart was trying out for the role of Lassie, a rookie pilot, alongside a young man called Tommy Rettig. Her connection was effortless, even maternal. Her screen tests were retained by CBS, even though she was not cast at that time. They recalled her when the show became popular and peaked at number 24 in 1957, many years later. Interestingly, her availability was retained even after she lost the Emmy. Lockhart was left free after Ball's victory. She officially joined the Lassie world in 1958, succeeding Cloris Leachman as the mother. John Provis, who was 8 years old during her first practice, was not a gentle soul. In the middle of a scene in the kitchen, he kicked her legs under the table, this time twice and again. Calmly, Lockhart ordered him to cease, but a single, unwavering line across his face. The subsequent 6 years were defined by the event. She secretly fretted over his weight, had large breakfasts sent to her dressing room, and fooled him into eating by claiming they had to practice. On and off screen, she mothered him. Another nomination for an Emmy came her way in 1959. Still, other events were taking place, something more challenging to broach. The way the animal trainers handled the Lassie dogs became a matter of widespread rumor. Scenarios had to be reshot whenever a command and dialogue overlapped since the Weatherwax family employed complicated commands. Lockhart noticed enough to begin inquiring. When she wanted to see animals treated better, she spoke up. In response to a Christmas rash that exposed the dog's biological gender, Max Factor designed a furrimkin to hide it. A provocative carol about the collie's underbelly was sung by Lockhart, who made everyone laugh. She worried deeply, but her humor cut through the air. Things became more complicated from 1960 to 1964. Strict regulations were a part of her Lassie contract. Alcohol, deodorants, laxatives, or anything even somewhat controversial would be impossible for her to promote. Sophisticated women were too much for her to handle. Unfortunately, she managed to defy authority in her own ways. She dared to fish alone in episodes like The Fisherman, pushing the boundaries of what a farm woman might accomplish. She improvised lines. Scripts that portrayed her as inferior to her husband were something she fought against. Modest changes, yet revolutionary for television in the 1960s. This continued unabated. There was no silence as she left in 1964. She made a daring request, 5,000 nows in each episode. Companies in the networking industry declined. June Dayton was brought in as a replacement, but the supporters were not happy. News Corp received more than 10,000 letters. Viewership declined. All chemistry had vanished. The comfort has gone. But Lockhart never came back. Both camps were driven apart by pride. Regardless, her impact was felt. One of the earliest real wage disputes involving a female celebrity on television arose from that impasse. She battled instead than merely acting. When June Lockhart auditioned for the role of Sarah on Lost in Space in 1965, she wasn't your average actor. As a self-starter, she studied space travel guidelines and physics textbooks extensively to be ready. Coming in at 40 years old, she faced up against 127 other actresses. Despite director Irwin Allen's mock alien invasion during the audition, Lockhart remained composed and unfazed. She maintained composure, rationally assessed the danger, and devised an escape strategy on the fly. Everything shifted at that moment. She was promptly hired by Allen, who boasted that she was the type of mother who could thrive in space. He had seen her work on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, another one of his performances, and she nailed the technical conversation for this one thanks to her extensive preparation. However, real-life anxieties made being a space parent very challenging. She was required to film an interior scene in a chariot during the pilot episodes. The crew emptied 6 large drums of water onto the scene to create the illusion that the family was being submerged by extraterrestrial water. They had faith in the chariot's stability, but it failed them. When the water began to pour in, there was nowhere to escape, because everyone was fastened in. The claustrophobia that Lockhart experienced became severe. It was genuine fear that she displayed in the scene. Their every movement was taxing due to the heavy jumpsuits, which weighted over 35 lbs when dry and considerably more when wet. She required assistance simply to stand up during days that lasted 14 hours. Real changes were brought about by her terror in due time. She also requested that the authors refrain from including any sequences within the ship's cramped cabins. Thus, they began to focus more on foreign planets in their episodes. Outside of her role as the severe TV parent, Lockhart had a completely different personality. She took on the role of a rock and roll tour guide behind the scenes for her youthful co-stars, Angela Cartwright and Bill Mumy. Just so they could enjoy the Sunset Strip music scene, she would hide them in the back of her 1913 fire engine truck and sneak them inside Whiskey A Go-Go. While there, they witnessed acts like Simon and Garfunkel, The Doors, and even unheard-of up-and-coming bands. In 1967, for her Halloween party, she hired a band called Hourglass. Subsequently, the Allman Brothers Band was formed from that ensemble. Lockhart kept the momentum going between scenes by blasting rock music. Mumy reminisces on how the music she chose lifted the mood of the stage, making it more enjoyable for everyone. She was so good at manipulating events that she even got them tickets to major concerts through her connections. Things became strange in Season 3, particularly after episodes such as The Great Vegetable Rebellion. The program started to lean more toward the absurd. It irritated Lockhart. Fighting gigantic talking plants in the desert was a part of filming that one. Between takes, she kept herself calm by listening to the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour and Sgt. Pepper on a portable radio. She was able to perform music during filming because the crew was so enamored with it that they inserted breaks specifically for her. After witnessing the improved performance of his colleagues, the director eventually gave in and stopped grumbling. After what she deemed the most humiliating episode in television history, Lockhart remarked that the music was her only solace. After airing in February 1968, it gained notoriety. It wasn't a scene or a costume, though, that caused the most friction. The actor Jonathan Harris, who portrayed Dr. Smith, was involved. Harris began acting out of character, hurling misogynistic slurs at Lockhart's character as his role grew more funny. In his mockery, he referred to her as a silly housewife and implied that she had no place on Earth outside of the space kitchen. He crossed the line in one episode. When Lockhart saw Irwin Allen, he stormed off set and insisted they meet. "We spoke for 3 hours straight." The play, she informed him directly, was perpetuating damaging stereotypes, and she would not tolerate it. Harris made an effort to clear his name by claiming it was merely character development. However, Lockhart did not believe it. She was contemplating taking legal action and even threatened to leave. Finally, Allen was on her side. In order to continue the show, Harris had to apologize and follow the script. Petticoat Junction lost more than simply its leading lady when Babe Ben-Aderet died in October 1968. That was its downfall. Her dwindling appearances in Season 5 owing to sickness had already started the show's ratings decline, and CBS was eager for a revival. At that point, June Lockhart showed up. Fans of Lassie and Lost in Space will recognize her from her 1968 November 16th appearance as the new town doctor, Dr. Janet Craig. However, this wasn't her typical supporting role. Subtle irony it was. Lockhart had secretly struggled with infertility for years, and now she was stepping into the role of a knowledgeable and nurturing elder in a society that valued tradition and family. Changing a persona wasn't all she was doing. When a television great passed away, she stepped in to fill the gap. The slide persisted despite her bringing composure to the position. In 1970, the series concluded, subtly bringing an end to a period. The Miss USA pageant, which featured June Lockhart, was a quite different type of American institution that gained popularity around the same period. She and Bob Barker co-hosted the show from 1967 to 1973. Prior to the 1972 scandal, it was a lucrative gig. Bombs detonated during the pageant ceremony in Puerto Rico that year, causing widespread mayhem. However, explosions were unrelated to the event that ended her tenure. Whatever the press chose to label as a scandal, it was love. John Cannon, who was 25 years her junior, was the man with whom Lockhart was seeing. In fact, they were not wed. All they were doing was sharing housing. The early 70s were a time when morality restrictions dictated many aspects of television, particularly pageants. After that, she was gone, thanks to that tabloid headline. Her 6-year run with the pageant ended due to public opinion, rather than her actual performance. She had other encounters with the spotlight besides that. American viewers could look forward to seeing June Lockhart wave from atop a New York City balloon every Thanksgiving. During the 60s and 70s, she was a staple of the Thanksgiving Day parade at Macy's. No one saw the dangers lurking beyond the cheerful front. A fierce hurricane in the late 1960s blew across the streets, causing her float to become unsteady during rehearsal. She tripped and hurt herself, injuring her legs and arms. She made light of the situation later on, referring to it as just another adventure in show business. However, the dangers and accident were not imaginary. It served as a sobering reminder that behind every flawless performance, mayhem ensued. Then something unexpected happened. NASA. Lockhart remains enamored with rockets, even after portraying a mother at a space market on Lost in Space. Her voiceover work for NASA PSAs in the 1970s earned her $300,000 each appearance, which was a tidy sum for the era. She had more at stake than just voice acting. It sparked a deep interest. Shuttle launches were witnessed by her. Mission control was her destination. At 2:09 in the morning, she used to sit in the control room. As she watched the astronauts awake to her father's 1919 composition, "The World is Waiting for the Sunrise." The commander, perplexed by the time, radioed down to clarify, then joked that the crew was curious about Lassie's mother's role in mission control. To NASA, she was like a queen. In exchange, she brought a friendly, approachable tone to the topic of space travel. Still, notoriety is peculiar. The moment you believe you've ensured your legacy, a single choice might linger with you indefinitely. Carol Brady's part on the Brady Bunch was offered to her by Sherwood Shores in 1969. She chose not to. Lockhart wasn't interested in being stereotyped as a TV mom again at the age of 44. She wanted more responsibilities and opportunities. Florence Henderson, who became a cultural icon as the archetypal American mother, instead got the part. For decades, Henderson was the center of attention thanks to the Brady Bunch, which went viral in syndication and spawned spin-off series. As all this was happening, Lockhart persisted in her work, but she never got the chance to define a whole generation. Observing Henderson ride the wave she had declined, she came to regret her decision later on. As America's ideal TV mom in the 50s and 60s, the actress secretly frequented Hollywood rock clubs, a fact that would have you believe the opposite. June Lockhart was unconcerned about anyone discovering her secret double life. For all time, she identified as a music lover. She was telling the truth. While portraying an innocent mother on screen, she listened to music by David Bowie, Chicago, the Rolling Stones, and the Beatles. Reportedly, she carries about just a single photo in her wallet. She has nothing to do with it. It belonged to Bowie. She was more than simply an apathetic listener. At its height in 1967, during the Summer of Love, she was out there in it, seeing performances at hidden clubs. Whiskey is her favorite go spot. Rock and roll was her life, so much so that her TV son Bill Mumy used to refer to her as a goddess. No pretense, no acting. The genuine article she was. Her 1968 Halloween bash was held at her residence. She spent $500 to secure the services of Herglass, a band that was virtually unknown at the time. Greg and Dwayne Allman, two brothers, were in that lineup. They blew everyone away with their music all night long until sunrise. Even after hosting, Lockhart wasn't done. For their meeting with the Lost in Space team, she even took the band to the set. Herglass transformed into the Allman Brothers Band in just a matter of months. It was said plainly by Mumy. Their rise to stardom was greatly aided by Lockhart. Apart from being a fan, she was more than that. She played the role of guide. As the 1960s came to a close, she began taking her youthful co-stars to real rock concerts. She took Mummy, who was 13 years old, and Angela Cartwright, who was 15 years old, to Whiskey A Go Go in 1967. Going backstage, they were joined by the Herglass Band to witness the Dirt Band's performance in all its gritty detail. Even though they were too young to legally drive, these youngsters were taking up famous, unfiltered music. There was more to come from Lockhart. Also, she secured tickets for them to see Simon and Garfunkel perform live. She could have remained in her trailer between takes, but instead she taught them rock's fundamentals, its rhythms, lyrics, and overall style. According to Mommy, it altered their perspective. Their young minds were redirected by music. She would turn up the volume on the radio and let the Lost in Space crew know about the newest songs whenever filming ceased. Lockhart used music as a means of connecting with everyone on set, which was unexpected coming from someone known for her gentle demeanor and pastel cardigans. It was more than simply background noise, it was her culture. Mumy goes so far as to say that she was the inspiration for his own musical career. The impression she left behind was substantial and everlasting. She maintained her receptiveness even as she aged. Even if she was playing Bowie music before a tape, she was still the mistress of Scrabble on set. It was noted by NASA. Her rebellious streak and inquisitive nature were reported to have served as an inspiration to astronauts. She was then informed by some of her students who had grown up watching Lost in Space that she had helped inspire them to pursue careers in space travel. She remained unyielding in the face of Hollywood pressure throughout her career. She was not one to pursue sensual parts, didn't try to pass herself off as younger or conceal her preferences. She is still one of the brightest persons Mommy has ever met, even at 99 years old. Unwaveringly, she pursued her passions. The music was always the star, not the acting. June 2025 was the year she turned 100. It was a peaceful day in her New York home with her daughters and a handful of close friends. There was no grand gala. As always, she reads 3 newspapers first thing in the morning, so she's sharp. She has been out of the limelight since her last major public appearance in 2015. While she's alone with herself, she maintains her independence, composure, and control. Her admirers are still there. At an autograph event, she surprised her son Lassie actor John Provost by casually asking for a Chardonnay, touching her head to her knee, and performing a yoga stretch. According to her, she was feeling great. "I am healthy and in good health." She quipped that she had a few young boyfriends and some excellent plastic surgery as her secret. Despite receiving 2 Emmy nominations, she was never named the winner. Twice in the years 1953 and 1959, Lucille Ball came out on top on both occasions. However, her possession is far more uncommon. The Hollywood Walk of Fame features 2 stars, one for film and one for television. They were both presented on the same day in 1960. She even lent her voice to the Lost in Space revival on Netflix, bringing her 96 years of age full circle to a show she helped make famous nearly 60 years ago. In addition to her Tony, Donaldson, and Theatre World Awards, she has several Broadway prizes. One other thing, the time she became a true space icon. The International Space Station featured her poster in 2005. The NASA Outstanding Public Achievement Medal was bestowed upon her in 2024. Despite her fans' pleading, she chose not to participate in any new Lost in Space content. Nonetheless, her tales continue to be told, particularly the one about how she hired young Dwayne and Greg Allman for that Halloween bash. Particularly on TikTok, those stories have gone popular recently. Some say she's the real rock rebel hiding behind her parent roles. She introduced youngsters who thought she was reading bedtime lines to guitars and grit.